The first time I saw my own obituary, I was barefoot in a gas station bathroom in northern Georgia, holding a prepaid phone that was not supposed to exist. My name was printed under my wedding photo. Mara Elise Motakar, 34, beloved wife, Dujhr, and friend. The article said I had died in a car accident outside Savannah. It said my husband, Grant Whitaker, was grieving in private. It said the whole town of Hartwell Bend was praying for him. The problem was, I was breathing. My hands shook so hard the phone slipped into the sink. The screen cracked across my face in the photo. For one strange second, the dead version of me looked like she was smiling through broken glass. That was when I understood the truth. Grant had not only stolen my life, he had buried it. And if the whole town believed I was dead, nobody would be looking for me. 3 days earlier, I woke up in a motel room with blood in my hair, mud on my coat, and no memory of how I got there. The room smelled like old carpet and rain. The curtains were closed, but gray morning light pushed through the edges. At first, I did not know my own name. I sat on the bed and stared at the dark red streaks on my sleeve. My head throbbed. My wrist had a bruise shaped like fingers. My purse was gone. My driver's license was gone. My wedding ring was gone. The only thing in my coat pocket was a small brass key. It had a strip of blue tape around it. 2 words were written on the tape. Hallo du Schreck. I knew those words, but they sat far away in my mind, like a song from childhood. In the mirror above the dresser, I saw a woman with a swollen cheek, a split lip, and dried blood down one side of her face. I touched the glass. Mara, I whispered. Then the memories came back in broken flashes. A black road. Rain. Grant's hand on the steering wheel. His voice, calm and cold. You should have left it alone. Then light. Then nothing. I did not call Grant. I did not call the police. I do not know why. Maybe fear has its own wisdom. Maybe some deep part of me knew that the husband people loved was the last person I should trust. I bought the prepaid phone with the emergency $20 bill I always kept inside the lining of my boot. My father taught me that. Money in the boot, he used to say. Key under the bumper. Truth in writing. I had laughed at him when I was young. I was not laughing anymore. The gas station had a coffee machine, a rack of maps, and a newspaper stand by the door. I was reaching for a map when I saw my face on the front page. Omens, iron light, I get crash. I ran to the bathroom, locked myself inside, and found the article online. It said my car had gone over Carson Bridge and exploded in the creek below. The body inside had been badly burned. Grant had identified my wedding ring. My wedding ring. The one missing from my finger. I slid down the wall and pressed both hands over my mouth so I would not scream. I had been married to Grant Whitaker for 7 years. Everyone in Hartwell Bend loved him. He wore clean shirts, remembered birthdays, donated to the high school football program, and shook every hand at church. He also knew how to make a person feel foolish for doubting him. At first, I called it confidence. Later, I called it strength. By the end, I knew the real word. Control. Grant controlled the money. Grant controlled the house. Grant controlled the story of who we were. He did not yell much. He did not need to. He could lower his voice and make a room feel colder. I worked as an office manager at the county records department. It was not glamorous, but I loved order. Deeds, permits, tax files, old signatures. People thought records were boring. I knew better. Records were memory. Records proved that something happened. Records could save a person when everyone else wanted to forget. 2 weeks before my death, I found a file that did not belong where it was. It was a property transfer for Hollow Creek Farm. The land had belonged to my father. That was impossible. My father died 4 years earlier, and the farm had been sold to pay medical debt. At least, that was what Grant told me. He handled the paperwork after the funeral because I was too broken to think straight. I signed whatever he put in front of me. "I'm protecting you," he said. Those words became his favorite cage. But the file said the farm had not been sold to pay debt. It had been transferred to a company called Silverline Development Group. Grant's company. The sale price was $10. There was a power of attorney attached, signed by me 2 days after my father's funeral. I never signed a power of attorney. At least, I did not know that I had. Then I found a pending zoning request. Grant planned to sell Hollow Creek Farm to a national warehouse chain. The deal was worth millions. My father's land. My mother's garden. The oak tree where I had carved my initials when I was 9. All of it was being turned into concrete. And Grant had done it while holding my hand at my father's funeral. That night, I waited in the kitchen with a yellow folder on the table. Rain tapped the windows. The house smelled like the roast chicken I had cooked but could not eat. Grant walked in, kissed my forehead, and asked why the lights were so bright. I pushed the folder toward him. "What is Hollow Creek?" I asked. He did not open it. He did not blink. That was what scared me. "Where did you get this?" he asked. "At work." His mouth tightened. "You went through private records." They had my father's name on them. He took off his watch and set it on the counter. Grant did small things slowly when he was angry. That was how he made you wait for the blow without ever raising his hand. "You don't understand business," he said. "I understand forgery." He smiled a little. "Mara, be careful. A guilty man argues. A cornered man threatens." Grant did neither. He looked like someone watching a door close exactly on schedule. The next day, the yellow folder disappeared from my desk. My supervisor told me I had been reported for misusing county records. She looked ashamed when she said it, but she still suspended me. By Saturday, Grant suggested we take a drive. "We need to reset," he said. "No lawyers, no shouting." Just I should have said no. I should have packed a bag and gone to a friend. But that is the thing about living with someone like Grant. He trains you to doubt your own fear. He makes panic feel rude. So I got in the car. We drove south in the rain. He said he wanted to show me the farm before anything was decided. "Where is my folder?" I asked. "You are sick," he said. "You are not seeing things clearly." My chest went cold. "I want a lawyer." He laughed softly. "You have no money for a lawyer." "I have the truth." That was when he looked at me. "No," he said. "You had the truth." The car sped up. I remember the bridge. I remember grabbing the door handle. I remember headlights behind us. Then I woke up in the motel. Now, sitting on that bathroom floor. I understood the shape of the trap. Grant had stolen the farm. I found out. He staged my death before I could prove it. Someone else had been in my car when it burned. Someone was dead in my place. The thought made me sick. I did not know who the woman was. I only knew Grant had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. I washed my face with cold water and looked in the mirror again. The woman staring back at me was hurt, scared, and alone, but she was not dead. And that gave her one advantage. Dead women can move quietly. The brass key led me to a storage unit outside Macon. The office was closed, but a gate code was written on the back of the key in tiny black numbers. Unit 17 sat at the end of a row under a flickering light. The key fit. Inside was a metal filing cabinet, a cardboard box, 2 old quilts, and my father's red toolbox. I fell to my knees when I saw it. Grant had told me that toolbox was sold at the estate auction. I opened it and smelled machine oil and sawdust. Under the top tray was a letter folded inside a plastic bag. "Mara, if you are reading this, then I was right to worry. Do not trust Grant with Hollow Creek. Do not trust the papers he gives you." I tried to warn you, but love makes noise. It can drown out the people trying to save you. I found out he was pressuring your father before he died. I found out he had a notary on his payroll. I found out the transfer was coming. I could not stop it alone, but I saved what I could. Go slow. Stay alive. Remember what your father always said. Truth in writing. Leela, I read the name 3 times. Leela Carter. My best friend. The same L. Carter from the motel receipt. Leela and I had been friends since 8th grade. She was the maid of honor at my wedding. She also disappeared from my life 2 years after I married Grant. I thought she abandoned me. Grant said she was jealous. He said Leela had always wanted what I had. By the time Leela tried to call me, I had been taught not to answer. I stood in that storage unit with her letter in my hand and felt shame burn through me. Grant had not only stolen my land, he had cut away every person who might have helped me. The filing cabinet was full of proof, copies of deeds, bank transfers, emails, photos of Grant meeting a county commissioner outside a steakhouse, a list of payments made through shell companies, a copy of the false power of attorney with my signature at the bottom. It looked exactly like my signature. Then I noticed the date. 2 days after my father's funeral. That day, Grant had given me a glass of wine and a white pill. He said the doctor prescribed it for anxiety. I remembered signing insurance forms. Or maybe I remembered him telling me I had signed them. The memory was soft around the edges. At the bottom of the cabinet was a flash drive taped inside a file folder. On the folder, Leela had written, Dio na palogias into a public MPR. There was also an envelope with $200 and a note. Call me from a pay phone. If I do not answer, call Detective Elena Ramos. Do not call from Hartwell Bend. I found a pay phone outside a laundromat 40 minutes later. It had graffiti on the side and smelled like cigarettes, but it worked. Leela answered on the 5th ring. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then she said, Mara, I broke. I cried so hard I could not stand. I held the phone with both hands and leaned my forehead against the metal box while traffic hissed behind me. I thought you were dead, she said. Oh God, Mara, I thought he finished it. You saved me, I said. No, not enough. What happened? He had a second car following you. I was following the second car. You were there? I saw him pull you out before the car went over. I think he thought you were dead or close to it. The other man panicked. They argued. I hid. I should have called police right then, but Grant has people inside the department. I followed him after he left you behind the old rest stop. Who died in my car? Silence. I don't know for sure, she said. But a woman went missing from Atlanta that night. Her name was Denise Bell. She worked as a process server. I think Grant hired her to deliver fake papers, then used her when he needed a body. I closed my eyes. A stranger was dead because my husband wanted money. What do I do now? I ask. You stay dead a little longer. Those words should have sounded cruel. They did not. They sounded like strategy. That was the beginning of my revenge. Not the kind with a gun. Not the kind people whisper about in dark bars. My father did not raise me to spill blood. He raised me to keep receipts. So I became a ghost with paperwork. For the next 6 days, Leela and I worked from the back room of a closed flower shop that belonged to her aunt in Augusta. Leela looked thinner than I remembered. Her hair was cut short. There were new lines around her eyes. For a moment, we stood across the room like strangers. Then she crossed the floor and held me so tightly I could barely breathe. I tried, she whispered. I know. I should have tried harder. I should have listened. We let both things be true. Leela had folders labeled with names I recognized. County Commissioner Wade. Deputy Chief Harris. Notary Public Ellen Greer, Silverline Development, Whittaker Holdings. Grant had built a network. Fake liens. Bribes disguised as consulting fees. Pressure on elderly landowners. Fire damage claims on properties that mysteriously burned before sale. Hollow Creek was only one piece. That made him more dangerous. It also made him more vulnerable. Powerful men protect themselves by making many people guilty. But if one person falls, they all start grabbing for air. Detective Ramos agreed to meet us in a church parking lot outside Athens. She arrived in an old blue sedan and wore jeans, a black jacket, and no expression at all. When she saw me alive, she did not gasp. She only said, "Mrs. Whittaker, your husband is having a very bad week." I liked her immediately. We sat in Leela's car while rain tapped the roof. Ramos listened to everything. She asked short questions. She took notes by hand. When I gave her the flash drive, she put it in an evidence bag. "Can you arrest him?" I asked. "Not today. He tried to kill me." "I believe you," she said. "But belief is not a warrant. We need clean evidence. We need confirmation on the body from the crash. We need insurance records. We need a judge who is not playing golf with Commissioner Wade." Then he wins. "No," Ramos said. "He gets comfortable. Comfortable men talk." Her plan was simple. Let Grant think I was dead. Let him attend my memorial. Let him push the warehouse closing. Let him believe he had outsmarted everybody. Then make him explain himself in front of the people who had helped him. The memorial was on Wednesday. I watched my own funeral from the choir loft. Lila got me into the church through a side door with help from the janitor. I wore a black scarf over my hair and thick glasses. Makeup covered most of the bruising. The church was full. People cried for me. Some of them truly cried. Mrs. Dalloway from the records office held a tissue to her mouth. My neighbor June leaned against her husband, like her knees had gone weak, and Grant stood at the front beside a framed photo of me. He looked perfect. Gray suit, red eyes, shaking hands. A grieving husband carved from marble. He spoke about my kindness. He spoke about my laugh. He said I had been struggling with stress. He said he wished he had seen the signs. That was when I understood his next move. He was not only making me dead, he was making me unstable. If questions came later, people would remember the grieving husband who tried to help his troubled wife. They would remember the woman who broke rules at work. The woman under investigation. The woman who maybe drove too fast in the rain. He was burying my credibility next to my body. Then he said, "Mara was the love of my life. I hope she has finally found peace." I gripped the wooden rail so hard a splinter went into my palm. Peace. He wanted me peaceful because peaceful women do not testify. After the service, Grant stood in the fellowship hall accepting hugs. I watched from a hallway through a cracked door. Commissioner Wade squeezed his shoulder. Deputy Chief Harris whispered in his ear. Ellen Greer, the notary, kissed his cheek and cried harder than anyone. Then a woman in a navy coat walked up to him. She was about 60, with silver hair and a face like weathered stone. Ramos had shown me her photo. Denise Bell's sister. Ruth spoke to Grant in a low voice. I could not hear the words, but I saw his face change. Only for 1 second. The mask slipped. Grant recovered quickly. He took her elbow and guided her away from the crowd, smiling like a man helping a grieving stranger. 2 minutes later, Ruth came out pale. Grant followed, still smiling. That night, Ruth disappeared. The police report said she checked out of her motel in a hurry. Her car was found the next morning at a bus station. Ramos called it a warning. I called it proof that waiting could get people killed. Leela and I argued for the first time. "We need to release everything," I said. "To who?" she asked. "A local paper." Grant can intimidate. A sheriff's office with Harris inside it. Then what? We hide until another woman disappears. Leela slammed her hand on the table. You think I don't know that? The room went quiet. She turned away, breathing hard. I have been carrying this alone for almost a year, she said. I lost my job. I lost my apartment. My mother thinks I'm on drugs because… Grant made sure she heard it from 3 different people. Do you know what it is like to tell the truth and watch it make you look crazy? Yes, I said softly. She looked back at me. For the first time, neither of us was angry. We were the same kind of tired. That night, I dreamed of my father's farm. In the dream, I was 10 years old, running through corn at sunset. My father called my name from the barn. When I reached him, he was holding my wedding ring in his palm. You dropped this? He said. I don't want it. Then stop letting it own you. I woke before dawn with a plan. Grant wanted the world to see him as a grieving husband. He wanted the warehouse company to see him as a clean businessman. He wanted his partners to see him as untouchable. So I would give him a stage, and then I would walk onto it alive. The warehouse closing was scheduled for Friday at the Hartwell Bend Country Club. Silverline had rented the ballroom for a community investment luncheon. There would be local officials, business owners, reporters, and executives from the warehouse chain. Grant loved ceremonies. He loved microphones. He loved any room where people had to clap before they could ask questions. Leela said it was too dangerous. Ramos said it was reckless. I said it was necessary. Once I appear, I told them, the death certificate falls apart. The insurance claim falls apart. The accident investigation falls apart. He will have to react in public. Ramos studied me for a long time. You understand something, she said. The minute you walk in, you become evidence. You also become a target. I was already a target. This time he won't leave you breathing by accident. I know. She leaned back. Then we do it my way. Her way involved microphones, backup, state investigators, and a reporter named Neil Armitage, who had been waiting years to prove corruption in Hartwell Bend. Leela sent him documents. Ramos arranged for officers to be nearby under another case number. Ruth Bell was still missing, but her phone had pinged near a hunting cabin owned by Commissioner Wade. That gave Ramos enough to move quietly. My part was simple. Stay hidden until Grant stood at the podium. Then enter. Simple does not mean easy. On Friday morning, I put on a navy dress Leela bought from a thrift store. I covered the bruises with makeup. I pinned my hair back the way I wore it at work. Then I opened a small envelope Ramos had given me. Inside was my wedding ring. They had taken it from evidence after proving it was not recovered from the crash. Grant had turned it in himself, claiming he found it in the ashes. There was no ash on it. Only a tiny scratch on the inside of the band, where I had hid it against my father's toolbox years ago. I slid it onto my finger one last time. Not because I belonged to Grant. Because he had used it to identify a dead woman, and I wanted him to see it return with the truth attached. The country club smelled like lemon polish and expensive flowers. Leela and I entered through the kitchen with Neil Armitage, who wore a caterer's jacket and looked much too pleased with himself. You sure you want to do this? He asked me. No, I said. But I'm doing it. That may be the most honest thing anyone says today. We waited in a storage hallway behind the ballroom. Through the wall, I heard music. Glasses clinking, polite laughter. Grant's voice came through the speakers, smooth and warm. Today is not only about business, he said. It is about legacy. I almost laughed. Legacy. Men like Grant love words clean enough to hide dirt under. He talked about jobs, growth, and honoring the past while building the future. Then he said my name. My late wife, Mara, believed in this community. That was my cue. I opened the ballroom doors. At first, nobody noticed. The room was facing the stage. Grant stood behind a podium with the Silverline logo on the front. Commissioner Wade sat beside him. Deputy Chief Harris stood near the back wall. Ellen Greer sat at a table with a pearl necklace and a frozen smile. Then Mrs. Dalloway saw me. Her glass slipped from her hand and shattered. The sound cut through the room. Faces turned. Someone screamed. Grant looked annoyed before he looked afraid. That mattered. His first reaction was not grief or shock. It was irritation that reality had interrupted him. Then he saw the ring on my finger. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. I walked slowly down the center aisle between the tables. Every step felt like walking through water. My knees shook. My heart slammed against my ribs. But I kept my eyes on Grant. The room had gone silent except for the soft hum of the speakers. When I reached the front, I took the microphone from the stand beside the podium. Grant whispered, "Mara." I turned to the crowd. "My name is Mara Ellis Whittaker," I said. Chaos erupted. People stood. Chairs scraped. Phones lifted. Grant reached for my arm, but I stepped back. "Do not touch me," I said into the microphone. Those 4 words filled the ballroom. Maybe I said them for myself. Maybe I said them for every woman who had ever been told to stay calm while someone stole her life. Either way, the room heard me. Grant tried to smile. "My wife has been through a trauma," he said. "Please, everyone give a space." I looked at him. "You told them I was dead. Mara, you are confused. You put my ring on another woman's body." A wave of sound moved through the crowd. Grant's eyes sharpened. The mask was coming back. "I don't know what she is talking about," he said. "This is a private medical matter." That was when Neil Armitage stood with his phone streaming live. "Mr. Whittaker," Neil called. "Why did your company file a zoning request for Hollow Creek Farm using a power of attorney your wife says was forged?" Grant turned pale. Commissioner Wade stood. Deputy Chief Harris started moving toward the exit. He did not get far. 2 state investigators stepped in front of him. Detective Ramos entered from the side door, badge visible on her belt. Behind her came more officers. Grant looked at Ramos, then at me. For the first time in our marriage, he looked afraid of me. I wish I could say that felt good. It did not. It felt heavy, like holding a stone pulled from deep water. Ramos approached the podium. "Grant Whittaker," she said, "you need to come with us." He laughed once. "For what?" "Insurance fraud, conspiracy, obstruction, and attempted murder. We will discuss the rest after we find Ruth Bell." At Ruth's name, Ellen Greer made a small, choking sound. Everyone heard it. Ramos turned her head. "Ems." Ellen began to cry. Grant snapped, "Shut up." There it was. The voice he used at home. The real one. The one with no charm wrapped around it. The whole room heard that too. Ellen covered her mouth. "I didn't know he would kill anyone," she said. The ballroom exploded again. Grant lunged toward her, but officers grabbed him. In the struggle, the microphone caught his voice. "You stupid woman. We had a deal." That sentence did more than any speech I could have given. Deals can be denied when they live in whispers. They become evidence when spoken into a microphone in front of 200 people and a live camera. Commissioner Wade sat down like his bones had melted. Deputy Chief Harris stared at the carpet. I stood beside the podium while the room I had feared for years watched the truth spread faster than Grant could catch it. Ramos found Ruth Bell that afternoon. She was alive, locked in the storm cellar of Commissioner Wade's hunting cabin, dehydrated and terrified but breathing. Grant had ordered Harris to hold her until after the closing. Harris confessed first. Men like that always do. They mistake loyalty for safety until the handcuffs click. The body in my car was confirmed to be Denise Bell 3 days later. She had been hired by Grant to deliver forged legal documents connected to the warehouse deal. When she realized something was wrong, she tried to back out. She never made it home. I attended her funeral under my maiden name. Her sister Ruth held my hand through the whole service. There are kinds of guilt no court can sentence, because no sentence would be enough. Denise died because she stepped too close to the machine built around my life. I did not kill her, but I carry her name with me. Forgetting her would be another crime. Grant's trial took 9 months. By then, the story had spread far beyond Hartwell Bend. Some called me brave. Some called me dramatic. Some said I should have stayed quiet. People always want women to bleed politely. In court, Grant wore dark suits and looked wounded. His lawyer suggested I had memory problems. He suggested Leela manipulated me. He suggested Detective Ramos wanted fame. He suggested Denise Bell had been part of the fraud and died by accident. But paperwork does not shake on the witness stand. Bank records spoke. Phone records spoke. Security videos spoke. The false notary log spoke. The life insurance claim spoke. The burned car spoke. Ruth Bell spoke, in a voice that trembled but did not break. Leela spoke, clear and sharp as broken glass. Then I spoke. The prosecutor asked me what I remembered from the night of the crash. I looked at the jury. I remember my husband telling me I should have left it alone. I said. I remember thinking I had married a stranger. Then I remember waking up and learning he had given the world a dead woman with my name. Grant stared at the table. He did not look at me once. That was fine. I was finished needing him to see me. When the verdict came, I did not cry. Guilty on fraud. Guilty on conspiracy. Guilty on attempted murder. Guilty on charges connected to Denise Bell's death. The judge sentenced him to a long time in prison. Long enough that his hair would go white behind bars. Long enough that Hollow Creek would still have seasons he could not touch. Commissioner Wade took a plea. Deputy Chief Harris took a plea. Ellen Greer testified and lost everything except her freedom. Silverline collapsed under lawsuits. The warehouse company backed out before the ink dried. Hollow Creek Farm came back to me in a settlement. The first time I returned, I went alone. It was late October. The old farmhouse needed paint. The barn roof sagged on one side, but the oak tree still stood at the top of the hill, broad and stubborn against the sky. I walked to it and touched the place where my initials were carved. M.E. Mara Ellis. Not Whittaker. Never again. I stood there and let myself remember my father. His hands stained with oil. His boots by the back door. His voice telling me that truth belonged in writing. I pulled Grant's wedding ring from my pocket. The court had returned it with my other things. I had not worn it since the luncheon. I thought about throwing it into the creek, but the creek had done nothing wrong. So I took it to my father's workshop. I placed it on the anvil he used for small repairs. Then I lifted his hammer. One strike flattened it. The sound rang through the barn like a bell. I did not smile. I did not shout. I did not feel clean or new. Revenge is not a shower. It does not wash everything away. Sometimes it is only a door you close so the fire cannot spread. But justice gave me room to breathe. That winter, Leela moved into the farmhouse with me while we repaired it. Not forever, she said, just until the pipes stopped freezing and I stopped pretending I was fine. We painted the kitchen yellow because my mother had always wanted it that way. We fixed the porch steps. We hired 2 local boys to clear the fence line, and I paid them better than my father ever could have. In spring, I planted a garden, tomatoes, beans, marigolds, rosemary by the back steps. Ruth Bell came one Saturday with a box of Denise's things. She asked if we could plant something for her sister. We chose a dogwood tree near the creek, where the morning sun touched the water first. Ruth pressed her palm into the soil after we finished. She liked pink flowers, she said. Then she will have them every year, I told her. We sat on the grass for a while. Neither of us tried to fill the silence. Some silence is empty. Some silence is respectful. This one was both. Months passed. My old job at the records office was offered back to me with an apology letter and a new supervisor. I did not return. I had spent too long in rooms where truth was filed away and forgotten until someone needed it. Instead, I started working with a legal aid group that helped families protect land from fraud. Leela built the website. Ramos sent people my way when cases looked familiar. I learned that revenge can become poison if you keep drinking it. But if you pour it into the ground with care, sometimes something useful grows. One afternoon, almost 2 years after the crash, I received a letter from Grant. The envelope came through his attorney. His handwriting looked smaller than I remembered. He wrote that prison had changed him. He wrote that he had found God. He wrote that he hoped I could forgive him, not for his sake, but for mine. Men like Grant always find one last way to make your healing about them. I read the letter twice. Then I walked outside to the burn barrel behind the barn. The sun was setting over Hollow Creek, turning the field gold. Leela was on the porch, drinking coffee and pretending not to watch me. I lit a match. The paper caught, curling at the edges. Grant's words blackened, twisted, and disappeared into smoke. I did not forgive him that day. Maybe I will someday. Maybe I will not. But I learned that forgiveness is not a debt victims owe to people who harmed them. It is not a performance. It is not a key handed back to the person who locked the door. My peace belongs to me now. That is what Grant never understood. He thought owning the land meant owning the story. He thought signing my name meant becoming my voice. He thought if he could make the world call me dead, I would stay buried. But the house remembered me. The county records remembered me. My father's toolbox remembered me. My best friend remembered me when I had forgotten how to trust myself. And in the end, I remembered too. On the 3rd anniversary of the day I walked into that ballroom alive, I held a small gathering at Hollow Creek Farm. Not a party. More like a witness mark. Leela came. Ruth came with flowers for Denise's tree. Detective Ramos came in plain clothes. Mrs. Dalloway came too. She cried when she saw me, then apologized for crying, then cried harder. We laughed because sometimes laughter is the only polite thing to do with pain that old. At sunset, we stood under the oak tree. The dogwood by the creek was blooming pale pink. The farmhouse windows glowed behind us. The land looked tired and alive, which is how I felt most days. Ruth raised a glass of iced tea. To the women who came back, she said. I looked at Leela. She looked at me. To the women who were never gone, Leela said. Everyone drank. Later, after they left, I walked down to the creek alone. The water moved over the stones in a quiet silver line. Fireflies blinked above the grass. I was not listening for footsteps behind me. I thought about the gas station bathroom, the cracked phone, the obituary, the woman in the mirror who looked like she had lost everything. I wished I could reach back through time and take her hand. I would tell her that fear was not weakness. I would tell her that survival did not have to look brave while it was happening. I would tell her that one day, the same town that buried her would have to watch her stand in the light. Then, I would tell her the truth that saved me. A stolen life is still a life. A buried voice is still a voice. And a woman who rises from her own grave does not come back empty-handed. She comes back with the truth.